Hi there, welcome to the God's Eye Production podcast. This is a supplement. As always, we try to obey where the Lord leads, and I feel in my heart the holidays are upon us. Christmas is coming near and closer. For those who celebrate that, Hanukkah is also coming near and close as well. This is just a supplement to that, and I just feel excitement and anticipation in my spirit and in my heart, and I'm just thinking about in the past when I was a child and how magical this time of year would seem. And I don't mean magical in a negative way at all. It's just there's kind of like a ooh-ah aspect to it, because the lights, the presents, the people that you're going to see that you've not seen for a while, all of these things are just it grips you, and it's like, ah. And for some people, I also acknowledge that, like we did in the last podcast about grief, that it can be a very sad time too, and it can be a nostalgic time because you're with the same people that you've been with, and even though situations and scenery may change, the people may not change. In light of that, we're going to go back and explore Don't Get Blindsided around the holidays. So this is just a supplement before that. One thing that I asked God on the way home was, let me do something different this year. Let me recapture some of that excitement that I had. Maybe it's going out and volunteering somewhere in a soup kitchen. Maybe it's going and seeing lights with part of your family that you've never seen or haven't seen in a long time. Maybe it's something totally different. Maybe it's going to a shelter somewhere and volunteering there, or something else. I want something new. So with that said, all of those things that I listed, I encourage you this time of year, if you have time, to go out and try new things, experience new things in the holiday season. Praying about it beforehand, but let's all just go out there and try to have new experiences, have new memories, and not continue to rely on the old memories of childhood, which are good memories. But let's make some new ones with our friends and our families. And that way we can look back on that. And we did that this year, with whatever. I mean, it sounds weird, but one of the most memorable holidays that we've had in a while was where we currently live. We had no water during Christmas one year. And literally the power was out. The water was not pumping because of the electricity being off. And that was a very tedious time, but it was also a very memorable time, not just because of the hardship of it, but, we were all there. We were intentional with each other. We weren't out doing our own things in different places. We all were kind of stuck together, and so it was kind of that old-timey Christmas from a long time ago that you listen to in the songs sometimes. And we ended up having to go down to the river and get water, because the creek nearby just didn't have enough water. So we actually had to physically drive to the river, get water in buckets, and then put them in there. And so I had 13 buckets of water in the back of my car. And driving with that much buckets of water in your car, it's very interesting, because water does not behave the same way as heavy stuff that you normally put in your car. Don't recommend it, but it was a very memorable Christmas is what I'm trying to get to. And I still look back fondly on that, even though it was a hardship of the time. It's still a warm memory because of everything that we did. And we were able to use the river water. And then about 3 or 4 hours later, after we went down to the river to get these buckets of water, the power came back on. So literally we were without power for, I think, 2 days or something like that. And then, all right, well, let's go get buckets and let's go down the river because the creek's not going to be giving us enough water. And it came on. But it was just a very memorable Christmas. And, we did presents, we did the thing, but we were all together in that way and we weren't distracted by other stuff. So, again, just encourage you, make new memories this year. Maybe consecrate your expectations of the season and ask God to catch your heart, because our hearts are very tender this time of year. But don't get blindsided at the holidays. And just ask for God to kind of walk you through the process. And for those of you who celebrate Hanukkah, it's coming up soon, and happy Hanukkah. I hope you enjoy the Festival of Lights. As for all the other holidays that are celebrated this time of year, I hope you enjoy those too. I'm not going to list them all because we need to get to the next step in the podcast. Just like I said, invite Jesus into it and counsel yourself this time of year too. What do you need to do to keep God at the epicenter of your life this time of year and protect that? So does that mean that you're an extroverted person, so you need to spend a little bit of time introverted and praying in the morning or something? Or does that mean you're an introverted person, and maybe you and the other introvert go out to the supermarket and buy the whipped cream that everybody forgot for the pumpkin pie, and you and that person can talk in the car and catch up? So just ask God to catch your heart and put his tender hand on your heart during this holiday season, because everything's partial. And this is kind of a blast from the past. Hope you enjoy. Don't get blindsided at Christmas. And we'll see you soon. Hi there. Welcome to the God's Eye Production Podcast. It's the week after Christmas. This is also a couple days into Hanukkah. I'm not going to count precisely because I'm probably going to be off and wrong. So for those who celebrate Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah. I'm not sure about Kwanzaa. Happy Kwanzaa, and whatever holiday you celebrate. I said in the last podcast that we'd pick it up after Christmas, after the holidays. To me, holidays means like the beginning of the new year. So, a lot of people will do like a new year, new you kind of podcast. But I kind of have had a lot of things buzzing in my brain, and God and I have been talking about some things, arguing about some things, and I've had to bend on some things. I am going to head and say that I am in a different workshop. I have little buildings all over where I live, and the shop I'm in is the emptiest shop I have, so it's going to be the echoiest shop that I have. Normally we do these in the workshop. It's really windy outside, so you'll probably hear that occasionally, so just keep that in mind. So I figured that up here might be better because it's not as close to the road. The wind should be kind of a windbreaker where I am. So hopefully we won't have all that in the background. And if so, then just hang on to your ears, I guess, because it's windy as of this recording. So I'm not quite sure what episode number we are on. I kind of feel like that was important at the beginning, but now it's just better to go with it. Normally I prepare a lot of notes. This time I don't really have a lot of notes, so which is strange for me because I love notes, but I just feel in my spirit that we just need to talk about the holidays. The holidays, I think I've said last time, that the holidays are an opportunity to go into things with God. A lot of people drink too much. A lot of people eat too much. Sometimes they just get caught up in the season. Sometimes it's masking for something else. So I'm stressed out about what my mom said. Therefore, I'm going to eat a lot more casserole because I'm stressed. Or I'm not going to eat a lot of things because I'm so busy, so on and so forth. So a lot of people fall out of different spectrums of that. So the point that I'm trying to make with all this is just to have an awareness of it. Mindless eating goes along the holidays, and this is not a diet podcast. I'm sure you can find a lot out there about positive body image around the holidays and things like that. I'm more concerned with the spiritual aspect of that and also the discipleship, because that's what we're about here at God's Eye Productions. So around the holidays, we kind of return to our younger selves. So I think I've talked about this before. I've had to go back into some things, and God will reveal things as you get older, so it goes in a circle. So what you thought you were good with, God says, no, you're not good with that. We need to fix this. Go back into it. So on and so forth. So that can be really revealing at times. So with where we're going today, though, is kind of a personal note, kind of like a real case scenario from the past, and I'm hoping that it allows you to get some awareness on what is quirky with you, and I don't mean in a good way. I mean the things that you need to work on. And I'm not pointing my finger at anybody when I say that, or waving my crooked finger saying that, you're not right with God, therefore this is not going to happen and that's going to... No, it's just kind of, I'm missing the mark. So I'm kind of going to tell my story in the hopes that maybe it'll help you kind of figure out your story a little bit with this in the holidays. And then we'll pick it up with our more regular podcast next time, wherever the Lord leads. So around Thanksgiving, I kind of returned to a younger state, and I think a lot of people do. And so I was very excited about a project that I was working on, and I wanted to share it with people. But it seemed like everybody else was kind of in the future, and I was still stuck in the past, so to speak. Even though it's their present, to me it felt like the future. If you spend too much time in the past, you'll be depressed. You spend too much time in the future, you'll be anxious. You can spend some time in both to get perspective and to get some reframing going on, but you definitely want to try to stay in the present as much as possible, because I feel like that, and a lot of religions stress that. The religion of now is not what we're talking about here. It's like if you stay in, God says in this, I can't remember the verse, but if you remain in me and I remain in you, you'll bear much fruit. So that means in the present time. It's not, what is the present time? What is the present time? And that's not what I'm saying. It's just if we spend too much time in one type of scenario, situation, then we're going to get stuck. And the holidays seems when most people get stuck, even though they don't realize what's happening or occurring. And if you do, God bless you, because you have an awareness that a lot of people don't have yet. Anyway, this time around the holidays, around Christmas, we had to reschedule a couple of times with my parents because they were sick. And I have a lot of issues sometimes with my parents. So God's been working on that. God's been dealing with that. And so because of past wounding and because of past hurt, it can inform your present way too much. So it kind of becomes a weight around your neck to the point where you can't have a decent conversation, a civilized conversation without somebody getting hurt because you're still stuck beating the air of the past person, even though they may or may not be that person anymore. So it comes back to trust and vulnerability. So being able to be open to people around the holidays, and especially your family, maybe a stranger, as much as your comfort level dictates. Or if God's constantly reminding you, hey, you need to resolve that issue with your brother. Hey, you need to resolve that issue with your mother. You need to resolve that issue with your grandma. Whatever, with your sister. Whatever it is, it'll keep coming up and going around and round and round until you eventually will drive you crazy, or, it will be an unresolved thing. And time is short. Life is short. Sometimes it seems like it takes forever, especially when you're younger. Then you get older and it seems like it goes really fast. Or if you live more in the present moment, sometimes it can pick up some speed, sometimes it can decrease in speed. But the point is that time is short and you need to resolve those things with the people who you love, who wounded you. Maybe going to them and saying, I forgive you for that is awkward. Maybe it's not appropriate. Maybe you can't. But getting some forgiveness in that and saying, look, this happened. This is who you were. What I believe right now is that you're upset at me. I'm in disappointment to you. And, putting it out there in the open, being very explicit. Being a person on the spectrum, the more explicit you are, the better off our interaction will be. Now, I've learned how, over the many years that I've had to interact with people, kind of cues, rhythms, things like that. But it's even worse now with technology because even the neurotypical people are becoming a little neurodivergent because they're stuck on their phones all the time. So they're kind of picking up some of our maladaptive traits from our childhood that people are like, oh no, you need to smile when you talk and do all this and do all that. But I mean, you have a family member and you have to call them on the phone to confirm some things, and you don't like talking on the phone because when you were younger, they were critical of the tone of voice you had, and also the method of delivery when you talked to them. You didn't seem interested. Pretty much point for point, what's wrong with the way that you're interacting with this phone. And I'm not talking about the phone that you have in your hand right now or in your pocket. I'm talking about the phone that used to be on the wall that goes ring, ring, ring. You pick it up and it's got a bunch of numbers with buttons on it. That's the kind of phone I'm talking about. So I'm not even talking about the phone that you have in your pocket right now or that you're listening to this on. What I'm talking about is that kind of phone. And to this day, I don't like that kind of phone. Maybe we need to do a little bit of research into why people don't like phones. Because for me, it's a childhood thing. But it seems like a lot of people in my generation, which is, I guess, old millennial. I don't like to put labels on things, but that's kind of where I am age bracket wise. But it seems like a lot of people my age don't like talking on the phone. And if you do, great. Maybe you can talk on the phone for me. Or maybe, in your country, you don't have to worry about that. And, you have everybody down your block. You just yell out the window. And that'd be, I guess in some ways that'd be great too. I have to probably drive my neighbors crazy with the music that I play in these buildings sometimes with the loud reverberation for the new speaker I got. But anyway, you're going to work on those things. And it's better to work on those things and treat it as that instead of that's the way mom always is, that's the way dad always is, etc., etc. So I think I preloaded this and talked about it before the holidays, but it's still on my mind, and I got blindsided. So I guess this podcast episode was blindsided by Christmas relationships or whatever. And I mean, that can apply even to your significant other as well. I need your interpretation. So when you say I believe what I believe right now, not what I'm choosing to believe, but what I believe right now, and that's telling them the interpretation that you're living under. And I've not tried this. Try this out, see if it works. John Eldredge has got a great podcast on this. I'm just speaking from my personal testimony here, so all credit to them where credit's due. This isn't something that, I just pulled out of the air by thinking about it. I just thought it was a really good point. I'd like to try it. I haven't had an opportunity to yet, because it's not just something you pull out. You're going to say, God, I want to try this thing in my toolbox. I need you to guide it, and I need you to help it, and I need you to show me how to facilitate that. And it's like the night where I was at my parents'. I really wanted to share a project I was working on with them, but, I prayed about it first, and I said, God, and he's like, not yet. I said, God, he's like, right now. And it went over really well. So I kind of got that conclusion of kind of what started this whole adventure in the first place in terms of the stuff I've been dealing with internally. So I got completion there, and I got excited because they were excited. And we were all in a vulnerable place because, around the holidays, if you're in a vulnerable place, and I don't mean a place of vulnerability to the point of being attacked, like out in the middle of the woods and something's going to come get you. What I mean is we're both in a agreed upon conditional place where we can be vulnerable with each other with conditions. That's what I mean. We're not going to air everything dirty laundry wise from the last 25, 30 years of the grievances I have against you. That's attack. That's defensive. That's not going to go over well. So, pick and choose your battles and let God facilitate it, because he's the great peacemaker. People forget that he has shalom, shalom. That's both peace on the inside, peace on the outside. So inside you feel peace, and on the outside around you is peace. So no family squabbles, no daddy, he took my toy type thing. It's shalom for the inside, shalom on the outside. And you could go really deep into that word, but I'm not going to get into the weeds there. It's a very important word, and it's so important that the Hebrew people will say it to each other as a greeting and as a parting. So peace when I come in, peace when I leave. Peace in this house, peace for your family, peace in your inside of your body in terms of your health, in terms of your emotional needs, your spiritual needs. So it covers everything. It's a circle. But God shut the door. He's like, yep, play it. Now's a good time. Now shut the door. But God, it's nope. Your window of opportunity has come to an end. And so I was frustrated and disappointed, because when I get excited about something and people seem to be excited about something, I want to share more with them about that thing. But sometimes people's windows of opportunity are limited. It'll open for 5 seconds, 3 minutes, whatever, then it'll shut. And if we'll pray for an awareness of when that time is, and it could be witnessing to them about Jesus, it could be some project we're working on, it could be other things. It doesn't have to be necessarily spiritual things, but just having an awareness of, I can talk to this person about this thing right now, or now's not a good time. I am very bad with timing, my wife can tell you, because I'll say something because it's important and it's right now and it's immediate, but she's not in a place to receive it, whether it be something good or something that we need to work on. And I don't mean that it's a checklist of whatever, It could be something as simple as, did you take the trash today? It's like, well, I still need to get the chicken ready and so on and so. Okay, well, that was not a good question to ask in that appropriate time. So it's not just some big giant spiritual truth. So, it can be a multitude of things. But being a person on the spectrum, you learn these things that I'm trying to help you out. If you are as well, try to shortcut it a little bit. Now, in life, there are no shortcuts, but there can be helpful, friendly pointers along the way. So like when you're a kid, you're doing the alphabet paper, A, B, C, and all that, and they give you the dots so that you can learn how to trace the dots. So this is the social dots of interaction with people. So try this, not that. So it's kind of in your social skill set, your toolbox, if you will. I'm trying to give you the dotted paper so that you can kind of learn how to write socially, or how to interact better socially. So it's kind of like that. In terms of who you're doing things with, be aware of your audience at all times. If you're with an older person, chances are you're going to have to speak louder, which you probably already know that. Your delivery is going to have to be shorter. They're probably going to repeat themselves a lot. Sometimes I'll repeat the same thing in 3 different ways because I have a teaching background, so I'm used to repeating things 3 to 5 times. So if this is annoying to you because I've kind of said some of this stuff before, I apologize. Say the same thing in different ways because, a kid may not get it one way, so you say it this way and then they understand it. And unfortunately, that also scratches the autism part of my brain as well because I get on a circle and I tend to repeat myself a lot. So go with God into your wounding. So there's wounding there, there's a coldness there to that person. That's the snake in the bushes. Yeah, that person could have been a snake in the bushes 25 years ago, but are you still going to hold that grudge against them? Well, there's perfect justification for it, A, B, C, and D. What did Jesus say? Forgive them. How many times? 7 times 77. So that's a lot of times to forgive somebody for something. Now, we don't forget, but we can forgive. But sometimes we also have to forgive ourselves too. What's really great is when you're talking to somebody and they're dealing with a similar issue and you can see it and they're like, oh my gosh, you're right. But then it takes somebody else for you to see it in you, and it's like so revealing, and it's like, whoa, you're right. I don't like that. So it's coming up in my tater patch, and I don't like it when you get in my tater patch. And I don't mind getting in your tater patch, but when you get in my tater patch, I don't like that. Go back to your own tater patch. That's something that is hard when you see stuff, when people see stuff in you, especially like if there's a spirit of criticism over your life that you're trying to get rid of and kind of get delivered from. And they're just trying to be helpful. And then, like we said before, unsolicited advice will come out as criticism. Very true. Same thing when somebody's telling it to you. It's really revealing. And there are things that we all have to work on. So I think that is part of the journey. It's a frustrating part of the journey because you don't want to do it. Because your way was the right way, not their way, or they hurt you and you don't want to get caught up in their lies and their webs and all that stuff. They may be older now. They may not be like that. And if they are, go with God with that. Facilitate that. You have to completely, and learn more about it too, Learn about if that person has a condition. And I'm not justifying anybody's bad behavior, but be more informed about why. The criticism on the phone, you're kind of upset about that, and then you pray, and then God's like, well, maybe they have a hearing issue, because every time that you talk to that particular person, they seem to mouth the words that you're saying on their lips that you're saying, and maybe they're doing that because they have an auditory processing disorder. And so when they were criticizing you on the phone, maybe it was because they couldn't process what you were saying and it was making them frustrated and they couldn't communicate that to you. So it came out as a criticism. And that takes time. And that's something I'm still struggling with. And that's something that's really fresh right now for me. So like I said, this podcast is kind of a testimony and it's kind of raw. So I'm still working on that. And we all have things we have to work on. And I'm hoping that maybe by being a little bit more transparent, that it's able to help you as a testimony. Because I know that when somebody gives their testimony, it helps me as well. But there's also a tendency, I think, in us sometimes to be critical of that too. And that is a spirit of doubt. So people are like, I got delivered from this and that and this and this, and God's moving this way. And there's part of you sometimes, at least in some people, where it's like, okay, that's great, but, and that's where you get into trouble. We're overcomers by our testimony, by the word of our testimony. So if that be the case, rejoice with that person that issue is resolved, or they got some healing there, some deliverance there, and just take that as it is well. God is still working. God is still sovereign. God is on the throne. And sometimes when you get oversaturated in that, it can be, oh yes, this and that and the other thing. But it's okay. I think we talked about at one point, we have the midlands, the shallows, and the depths. And with the midlands, the shallows, and the depths, John Eldridge has a great podcast on that. I can't remember which Wild at Heart podcast it is. But a lot of people live in the shallows. A lot of people live in the midlands. A lot of people don't live in the depths. When you're a person that lives in the depths, and for a person with autism, the army men that you love, that you know everything about, their insignia, the time that badge came out, the uniform was by this company, so on and so forth, that's really deep stuff. Now, granted, it's not it's not deep like in a spiritual way, but I mean, you could use that as kind of a segue into something pretty deep. But going that deep into something, I'm trying to explain it. Going that deep into something is like emotional depths. You know, you can, if you live down there a lot, and some people do. I mean, we pay artists millions upon millions of dollars, and most of them who write lyrics, you know, they're in the depths when they're doing that. And sometimes people will interview them, and you know, they have a muse, but that's divine. It's divine stuff. Now, granted, you can abuse that, and you can make it glorify you instead of glorify God, but it's not a place where a lot of people stay for a long period of time, or they'll touch the surface of it. So the point is, don't get discouraged if people are not on the same level as you with some things. It's okay. If they want to learn, you can teach them, but if they don't, then just learn what you can about them and just go from there. Meet them where they're at, and that's hard for me, and it's always been hard for me. So, you know, they got delivered, they got healed. Well, yeah, that's true, but they also were going on chemotherapy, and they were, you know, this drug interacted with this part of the body cell and did this. Yes, it did, but who gave man the knowledge of the stuff to do that? God. So don't take that for granted. We live in an age now where it's death by information. So we have to evaluate that information through a biblical worldview and what's useful and what's not. So the interpretive lens that I use, including with my wounding, is sort of the problem that I have. I can't get out of it, but I can get somebody to help me get out of that. And in my opinion, biblical worldview is the most objective worldview there is. A lot of people don't look into the depths of things. They're not worried about the great mystery behind things. It's just the way it has always been. It's the way it is. And if people are like that, learning to meet them on their level is very important. And I'm not trying to be arrogant when I say that. You know, when the Bible says when I was in Rome, I spoke like a Roman. So something like that. You know, you're around, in my case, a lot of people who work with their hands in my area have an accent. And I don't typically have the accent of my area unless I'm with those people. Part of it is an intentional decision. Part of it is also because I'm reflecting what I'm hearing. So if I'm around, when I went to the set of The Chosen in Texas, suddenly I started talking like I was from Israel. And I don't mean Hebrew, I mean just with a Hebraic accent on everything. I was doing it over a 2-day period for like 24 hours. So that's a lot of time to be saturated in that type of culture, in that type of language or accent. People who are newer to Virgin apparently are very good at that sometimes. So that was interesting to learn. So you got to meet people where they are. Now, when I was younger, it would be the poser self talking, like, yeah, we got to go over there and get that thing. And no, that's the poser self. You got to get delivered from that. I'm talking about real conversations, like, yeah, with that thing there in that Kubota, you know, and I put that on there. And you're like, oh yeah, did you try to put the carburetor in that part and like you messed it up? Like, yeah, I messed it up and I did this. Like, man, I hate it when that happens. So it comes out a little bit, but it's coming from a genuine place of trying to connect with people. And it's hard to connect with your family. It's hard to connect with your relatives around the holidays. Or you end up thinking about things after the holidays or progressing to the holidays, New Year's and all that. But go with God in it. Be open to the movement of God in there. And I'll be honest, when this was all happening, I prayed and I said, God, I know that this interaction with this particular family member is going to have to change. I'm not ready for the change. It makes me upset. It makes me angry. And it kind of distorts the bubble I built up around this person. But you've been on me through various people to be kinder, to see their point of view, and it's been validated through 2 witnesses in a biblical way. And I don't really like it, but set up the conditions to get me ready to receive and get delivered from this place of wounding. With that said, I'm going to fight you. I'm going to resist. But I need you to just set it up the way it needs to be set up so that the outcome happens that I know you want to have happen, but in a way that works for both of us. So that was kind of a convoluted prayer, but it's like, look, I know that this has to happen. I know that I'm going to have to do this. I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this, but time is running out. Time is short, and it will be an unresolved issue that I will not be able to fix or get deliverance from if I don't start the process now. And that sounds like a big cosmic nebulous thing, but the point is, time's running out. Spend time with your family around the holidays. Whatever you need healing and deliverance for, God's a big God. He can handle it. He created the universe. The mathematic formulas that are sustaining the universe right now sustains us. So trust Him and let Him handle it. But you need to do the work that you need to do as well. And it's a partnership. So for you, it might be being in a position to be willing to receive instruction. It might be, I'm trying, God, but I'm not doing good right now. I mean, it could be a multitude of things. So just in the time, just go with God on that and trust Him and surrender to Him. Trust and surrender. The biggest things that I've learned from my time asking for advanced words, which John Eldridge has a great podcast on that, where at the end, towards the end of the year, when New Year's rolls around, they always do one about having advanced words. Pray for the year. What's the year like? What are we going to do this year, God? What would you say over this year? So on and so forth. And I'm not selling them short. I'm just kind of trying to share this good news with you. So if for some reason you guys ever come and listen to this, I'm just pointing people towards your ministry. I'm pointing people towards what you have to say. All I'm doing is just talking about my personal experience here. So I'm giving credit where credit's due. Thank you for all that you do. But every time I've done that, I've looked back and I've seen that trust and surrender were the two biggest things. Every year, the theme was this. But when you chart it over multiple years in terms of the advanced word God gives you, and if you'll write it down, you can see trends and commonalities. You're like, oh my gosh, this year it was this year it was that, this year it was that. The category that all of these advanced words fall under is trust. Oh my gosh, the category that all of these words that God gave me the last 7-8 years is surrender. So this is an offshoot of surrender. It's like surrender is the big mothership idea, if we can visualize it in our brains. And then we put a circle around it, put some sticks coming down. And those little sticks are all the words advanced that I was given. And then we put a circle around those words. And you're like, okay, the mothership category is trust and surrender. The point is, if you do those things, you will be in a better position to get healing, restoration, and deliverance from the things that are making you stuck in the mud like a wagon wheel. But you got to be willing to receive it and go towards where God wants you to go towards. And I'm still working on that, and I still got to get delivered from that a lot. So anyway, this has been off-the-cuff testimony of the holidays, I guess. We'll see where God leads for the next time. Probably won't pick it up until January. We got some projects coming up that we'll announce soon. And I'm not talking podcast projects. I'm talking about just in general. And just a little bit about it. God's Eye Productions, if you go to the YouTube channel, there are some videos that go along with this podcast. This podcast actually was a long time coming. The videos were what the structure of it was at first, and kind of the outreach first. And that, at this point, hasn't been led to go back into that. But originally this was more of a movie ministry. Due to the time constraints that I have, the podcast is all that I can manage at the moment. But just know that God's Eye Productions is kind of like a mothership, and projects that come off from that are kind of like the other little, baby ships of that. So just want to throw that out there because, I have a blog, we have the podcast, some little vignette scenes on the website, on our YouTube page. So lots of little things. Some things are a little dated now, but that's okay. God is a God that is not constrained by time. So those things are I think still timely and appropriate. But anyway, you can check out some of those things. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.